Okay, so my talk is dedicated to the study of one-loop corrections in the decoupling limit of generalized Yukawa model. We conducted this research for the last several months, and we prepared a paper about it. Here you can see the archive ID of this paper. Okay, what is the motivation of our research? It is known that many models of new physics introduce heavy particles, which decouple at low energies. Which decouple at the energies of our collider experiments or other scattering experiments which we conduct for now. And we could not see direct production of these particles. If it is so, then we could describe contribution of these particles into our observables by the means of effective Lagrangian. This effective Lagrangian consists of, here you can see the expression of this Lagrangian. It consists of two parts. The first part is the usual standard model Lagrangian. And the second part is a series of higher dimensional operators, which consist of the standard model fields. Here, these operators are denoted as O with subscript K, and contributions of these operators are proportional to the coefficients. Here, you can see the coefficient, the coupling CK, which is called also Wilson coefficient, and contribution of this operator of dimension k is suppressed by some large mass lambda into the power k. So, for example, if we have operators of dimension 6, then their contribution is suppressed by lambda squared. Lambda is lambda is a scale of energies of particles where new physics, new heavy particles could be produced on shell. So if we have scattering experiment with energies involved of order lambda, then we could produce new heavy particles on shell. Okay, so you can see that higher dimension operators, their contributions are suppressed with higher values of lambda. And this model is called effective field theory. We know that this effective Lagrangian is often used in modern research to describe contributions of new heavy particles. And in this research, in many researches, experimental, we derive constraints on these coefficients, ck and lambda, from the experimental data. And here you can see some examples of the publications where this approach is employed. But of course, there are many more publications, many more researchers which use this approach. So we derive limits on these coefficients of the effective Lagrangian, and from these limits we then derive limits on parameters of some complete new physics model, where we don't have these effective operators, but we have usual renormalizable interactions. We know that contributions of these effective vertexes, of these effective operators into the cross sections into the observables or cross sections of scattering experiments, these contributions are very small because lambda is often very big. It could be of order of several tera electron volts, and given that, we assumed that not only effective vertices could have significant contribution, could have some contribution into the cross sections or observables of scattering processes, but also loop corrections could have effect on these observables. I mean loop corrections to the new physics interactions. For example, suppose that we have a model where the standard model is extended with, for example, heavy scalar field. So we have, for example, 2 Higgs doublet model extended with several heavy scalars, and this model also has one standard model Higgs boson. In this model, we would have the diagrams shown here. In the next two leading order of perturbative calculations of, for example, matrix elements of scattering processes, we would have contributions of these diagrams. The first diagram describes one loop mixing of light Higgs boson and heavy Higgs boson via the loop of the standard model fermions. So here you can see that light Higgs field, I mean that which was detected in 2012, which has a mass of 125 GeV. This state is admixed with some heavy, very heavy neutral scalar here. And we'll also have contributions to the masses to the mass of the heavy scalar field, also via interaction with the standard model fermions. And there could also be interactions with some heavy fermions which do not belong to the standard model. And in our research, we suggest that contribution of such loop corrections could be their magnitude could be of the same order as the contribution of effective interactions introduced by the effective Lagrangian. And this takes place under some conditions. And the problem which we state in our research is to identify conditions when loop corrections are significant, when they are as significant as effective vertices, as effective interactions. We know that there already exist some investigations of the applicability ranges of effective theories, of effective Lagrangians, but we could not find any study of loop corrections which emerge from the light particles, from the particles of the standard model, for example. So how do contributions of loop corrections of these light particles affect applicability range of effective theory in the decoupling regime? So when heavy particles decouple, we could not find such research. In our investigation, we derive limits on parameters of a complete model, on the couplings and masses of a complete model. And we consider only loops of light particles, and we do not consider loops which are introduced by effective interactions, by some 4 fermion vertices or some other ones. And we also identify diagrams which are the most relevant in various scenarios within our model. We conduct our research within a toy model. We know that this is a toy model, but it is relevant for our study. We have chosen this model because we are not interested in the transformational properties of fields or in the complex interactions within the standard model. We know that this model is simple. The Yukawa model is simple, and nevertheless, it contains the phenomena which we are interested in. Here you can see the Lagrangian of this model. You can see that it consists of two scalar fields, phi and chi, and two fermions, psi1 and psi2. In this model, we put scalar boson chi to be very heavy. So its mass lambda is much higher than masses of the other particles of the model. Here, mass of the light scalar is mu, and masses of fermions are m1 and m2. We derive effective Lagrangian of this model. Here you can see this Lagrangian in the limit when he boson decouples. This Lagrangian consists of two parts. The first part, given in the first line, describes dynamics of the light sector of the model. And the second part, given in the second line, describes contribution of interactions with the heavy scalar in the limit when heavy scalar is decoupled. This contribution is given by the four fermion vertices. Here you can see them. And their contribution is suppressed by the lambda squared. So if lambda is very, very high, we would have that this term vanishes, and we only have our light sector theory, light theory. What are the features of this effective Lagrangian? As you can see, this Lagrangian contains only effective operators of dimension 6. It doesn't contain operators of dimension 5, and we do not consider here operators of dimension bigger than 6. Why it is so? It is known from the experiment that operators of dimension 5 introduce lepton number violation. And so, and this phenomenon is severely constrained by experiments. And if it is so, then effective operator of dimension 5 would be either very small, I mean, coupling of this operator would be either very small or it would be 0. So we could neglect it. There are also operators of dimension bigger than 6 in our research. But these operators become significant only at very high energies in the processes which we study here. And we make our conclusions about low energy region. So in this region, these high dimension operators are suppressed, and we omit them. Okay, in our research, we consider two scattering processes. One is S-channel process, and the second is T-channel process. The first is annihilation of fermion-antifermion pair psi1 with the subsequent creation of the fermion-antifermion pair psi2. And the second process is the elastic scattering of psi1 fermions over psi2 fermions. In both processes, we have scalar bosons phi and chi in the intermediate state within the UV complete model. The cross-section of this scattering process is shown here. Here you can see the, the sigma squared is the cross-section. It is proportional to the squared of the modulus of matrix element of the scattering process. This matrix element has the same structure for both S and T channels. And here I give only this. I provide it in the universal form. It depends on the Q squared. Q squared is equal to S in the S channel process and is equal to T in T channel process, where S and T are Mandelstam invariants. This matrix element consists of three parts. It consists of the vertex vertex Yukawa vertices and Yukawa vertices of final fermions, of initial fermions, and there is also a contribution of scalars to point green functions. Here you can see that gamma phi and gamma phi and gamma high are Yukawa vertices with loop corrections, and pi phi phi, pi phi high, and pi high high are components of polarization operator of the scalar fields. And in our research, we also omit box diagrams because we found out that their contribution is neglectably small, so we omit them. We derive our matrix element in the improved Born approximation. Here you can see that here you can see the diagrams which were taken into account in our research. Speaking about the polarization operator components, you can see here the diagrams which correspond to the components of this operator. It consists of self-energy insertions for light scalar field and for heavy scalar field, and it also contains a contribution of one-loop mixing of light and heavy scalar bosons. And we also impose such renormalization conditions on the components of this polarization operator that parameters mu and lambda are they correspond to the positions of the scalar particles resonances. So yes, what we would have then in the limit when heavy scalar decouples. In this limit, we take this this matrix element of the scattering process in the limit when when heavy scalar decouples. So in the limit when modulus of Q squared is much less than mass of the heavy scalar boson.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We have no time for all these details. You took already 20 minutes. Please.
Oh, sorry.
Try to come to your conclusions.
Okay. Then I would come shortly to my conclusions. We found out that if couplings in the light sector of the model and in the heavy sector of the model are small, so if interaction of light fermions with both light and heavy scalars are feeble, then loop corrections are negligible, and effective Lagrangian described in studied in this research is applicable for the description of the scattering processes at low energies. If interaction between light fermions and heavy scalars is powerful enough, then we would have that loop corrections to the high boson mass should be taken into account, because these corrections are considerable. In our model, we have that these corrections could be of order of 10% of the high boson mass. for some values of the model parameters. Why it is important? Because these loop corrections suppress the contribution of the heavy scalar in the reaction cross-section. And if this contribution is very significant, then this suppression is also very significant. And the effective Lagrangian does not take into account this suppression. So it overestimates, effective Lagrangian overestimates the high boson contribution, heavy boson contribution in a cross-section when heavy boson decouples. And finally, if interaction between light fermions and light scalars is not small, then we would have that one loop mixing of light and heavy scalars is powerful, and it is significant with respect to the contribution of, for example, 4 fermion interaction term. And if we take into account 4 fermion interaction, then we also should take into account one loop mixing. But effective Lagrangian does not take into account one loop mixing of light and heavy states. So finally, we conclude that if loop corrections are significant, if interactions of light fermions, if Yukawa interactions of light fermions are not feeble, then loop corrections are sizable, and we could not apply effective Lagrangian to describe observables at low energies. And the results which we derived here, they could be applied to some models of new physics which extend the standard model. For example, the 2 Higgs doublet model, we could apply this to the 2 Higgs doublet model. This was actually the original motivation of this research. So we wanted to find out when we could apply the effective Lagrangian of the 2 Higgs doublet model to describe scattering processes of the standard model fermions. And finally, and finally we point that when we study cross-sections within the 2 Higgs doublet model effective field theory, then we should estimate loop corrections when heavy scalars decouple. This is all.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we overcome the time for this talk, so we have no time for any question. Thank you very much.